students need to be 6 feet apart and they need to pick up their diplomas without, being handed them, we're going to factor those considerations and put them in place so that everybody's safe.
Yeah. And I think you'd have no other way than to make sure that your student advisors are interacting with the professionals and the adults. And again, you're going to couple that with the Bunnell County Department of Health's high expectations and uncompromised expectations.
Absolutely, and I think that what can't get lost in any of this is something that has to be supported by our students. And having said that, we also understand that this is falling short of what they've dreamed about for many years, and for families as well. And we know that there's disappointment in that, but our job is for the class of 2020 who's showed more resiliency than most classes have ever been required of. But I'm confident that they will rise to the occasion, and whatever we develop will be something that they support and understand that it's the very best that we can do under the circumstances. And there's a lot of love and care in the planning and the execution of the events, and we're going to do our best to acknowledge all their accomplishments and send them off the way we do every class, with the hopes that they'll return and tell us about their stories.
So, Mr. Clark, I know that you're networked with your Monroe County counterparts. Have you talked a little bit about them and how they're processing graduation? And you mentioned in the beginning, like, there's incredible school districts all around us. We all have unique variables. Size is something that's unique, that's a variable that we need to consider here at Fairport.
Certainly. In fact, in our last week's meeting on Thursday, we actually talked with someone at RIT and in the hopes that maybe, that's a venue that I'd say that probably 6 or 7 at least schools use for end-of-year graduation ceremonies, and trying to figure out if there was any plausibility of us, with our size fitting in their venue. And it's all tenuous. Right now, all events have been canceled up through August for RIT, but they accept the school graduations, and because the campus is empty, trying to see if things are relaxed. So they're still playing it by ear, but also I would say that every school in the county is considering the virtual option.
And we're going to do all we can to create an opportunity that's important and special for families and our students to be together in as much as we can, in a socially distanced manner that meets the regulations that we're all bound by. And we're going to exercise all options from looking at different venues to using our own facilities. We will have resources, financial resources to support this moving forward to make it a special event. I know that came up with the offsetting the cost of Blue Cross and Blue Shield because they're no longer part of this process.
Right, and I would just say, that's the one thing that's been really great, and even though it's impactful to all of them, is that, we were given some latitude to cancel at the last minute and not lose money. So, we have money set aside every year for commencement, and this year will be no different. How we put that together, it's really just going to come up with, we have to develop a plan, and then we'll work with our partners in the district office and make sure that that's going to happen. But again, we're all in the same boat, around the county, and I'd say, everyone is looking at trying to have some type of in-person physical graduation, but knowing that they need a plan for that other alternate, which might be that, we can't be together based on the guidelines that are in place.
As far as signing yearbooks, getting yearbooks, making sure that you get your caps and your gowns, that will be part of the planning process, Mr. Clark?
Yes, again, we have a broad structure of a plan right now, but we want to share that with students and get some feedback from them and get some excitement around it. Our hope is to make at least some kind of a joyful memory out of that. And so we're debating whether we deliver them or we pick them up, and understanding, what can we do that's the most safe way to do this, but also fun for the kids, and again, create a positive memory.
And I'm just thinking, I'm seeing the lists of families that are part of this process right here, and I do appreciate the thoughtful approach, Mr. Clark. I know that as a father yourself, these are important moments, and we're going to try to look at it through that lens, as a family that's celebrating a special moment in time, but also probably more importantly through the lens of what our students are looking to make that day special.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as a father, I know that, this would typically be the time most families are looking at what projects need to be done around the house to prepare for a graduation party. Mr. Provenzano, I'm sure, did a lot of work at his house last year, And this is really truly one of those things that affects the entire family. And very, very aware of that fact, and trying to take our time and listen to the concerns of all of the students and staff. And that's another piece of this that I don't want to get lost in this is, if you've been interacting with the staff at all, it's Teacher Appreciation Week. So hopefully you've reached out and let your teachers know, you're thinking about them. But there's a sense of grieving that's going on by them, that knowing that they're not going to be able to be with you and say goodbye. It started off Monday morning with, Mr. Gillette's morning announcement. And just letting you know, like, they're hurting for you because they're very much attached to your stories and very excited for where you're headed.
So we were talking earlier today, and you were, again, you know that there's many activities that our seniors won't be able to participate in, but, for example, the day where they choose their college.
Yes, Decision Day.
Decision Day.
Yeah.
All those factors are being considered, and you're going to be looking at your calendar, making sure that you try to do your best to have a commensurate experience in as much as you can.
Absolutely, and I know the traditional Decision Day was last week. Our Decision Day is always floated around, typically, honestly, it always lands right in the middle of APs, and I typically get some emails from parents saying, do we have to do it at that time? So our guidance department is kind of running the show there, and there was a message that went out from Mr. Page. We're reaching out to kids to share your plans for college, career, or the military with us, and we're absolutely going to celebrate each and every student that participates in that process, just like we do here in school. So we're going to try to do that in a virtual way so that people can see what the plans are, and like I said, the entire community kind of share in that process. So we're really looking forward to that. I know many of you are hearing right now, what those plans are, or in the midst of making that decision, but please look for that announcement and fill out those forms to help us make this a special day for you.
Next steps, Mr. Clark?
Again, so next steps, we talked about this in the beginning, but just to reiterate, tomorrow we've got a committee setting up in a Google Meet, because that's the way meetings go right now. And that's going to be run by Mr. Monticelli, who's in charge of graduation, and our class advisors, who are used to helping in the planning and execution of that, our guidance counselors who are part of that, our class officers, so that strong student voice is there, and a few other people, myself, the building leaders, and then, like I said, Scott Fitch for his expertise from that Jocelyn's point of view.
And do you imagine, like, using technology, to bring this to reality?
It's kind of amazing. Normally our biggest concern is getting the chairs set up for rehearsal, making sure that everybody's names are in the right place. So this is going to be a daunting task, but I know that we're all very, very much committed to making it a great experience, again, under challenging circumstances for everybody.
Yeah. I'm just looking through the questions, and there's many good thoughts, many good questions. These questions will be filtered through an advisory committee that has students, student reps on it, and administrators and class advisors.
Absolutely.
On it. And I know you'll be communicating with your PTA because they're.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't include them. The PTSA rep will be there as well, so we'll hopefully have some PTSA representatives, and I believe we invited the organizers of the senior bash as well. And again, I think that all factors into that secondary option that we came up with, of potentially having a weekend where we celebrate seniors if social distancing guidelines allow it to happen.
Without a doubt, and I know that all the great comments, I'm sitting there going through this list saying, oh, that's a great idea, this is a good idea, and all those will be filtered through that task force.
Yeah, and again, the guardrails will be, is it feasible for us? As I saw somebody mention Frontier Field. It's certainly, we'll make the phone calls, and we'll look into every option that we can. Again, it really comes down to if we're allowed to meet in groups of larger than 50, everything else beyond that is very, very difficult for us.
I think there's a really good question out here, and there's lots of good questions and thoughts. Really appreciate you filling up this chat line. If we don't get to all of these questions or are able to address them, we will definitely be sharing it with the advisory committee that's looking at graduation, but we don't have a specific date yet. And all that is going to be determined based upon our continued communication with Monroe County Department of Health, right? And
absolutely. We've targeted, for if we were allowed to have a graduation here at Fairport High School, we've targeted that weekend of July 31st, August 1st, and August 2nd, only because it ties in with students having to leave for college and for orientation. that's about as late as we feel like it can go. Other schools in the county are potentially moving back to August 7th, 8th, and 9th.
So in your mind, again, I know there's lots of variables, but moving it out that late so we could be together in as much as we can.
Right.
Is the idea, right? So
Absolutely, and we're trying to maximize participation too. So, I know there was a comment in the thought exchange, like maybe even over fall weekend, and again, I have a feeling that most seniors, once they're in college, while they want to come back, they might not want to come back into that, to come across the stage. So, most schools have kind of stayed away from that, but, our goal is to maximize participation before they move on to that next step.
So Governor Cuomo's done a nice job communicating every 2 weeks as to when decision points will be, and I think that's a nice, thoughtful way to move forward. We will be looking within the next 2 weeks to talk about the next steps, to give potential timeframes. We'll learn more, we'll have more guidance, we'll know what phase Monroe County is going to be in with our transitioning off the pause. So we'll be waiting to hear that guidance, because those factors will definitely impact to the extent that we can pull off a graduation.
Right, and so our hope is that, we need a little time for the logistics around planning, either option that we come up with, or if it's something different than what I've presented to you this evening. Our goal would be to send out a save the date to all families in the coming weeks. I'd like to think that by the end of May at the latest, we'll have a concrete plan in place, and we'll know what the guidelines are from the state, based on the way that they've projected, like you said, at least 2 weeks out. And so we'll send that save the date so that families can plan effectively for whatever the ceremony is. And if it's the virtual type ceremony, we'll also communicate specific plans about how we're going to bring kids in a safe way to take those pictures and have that experience. So,
and I think that's just important to continue to reinforce, and I know people are still coming in at the risk of being redundant. We will be listening very carefully to our community partners. Dr. Mendoza, the Monroe County Department of Health, they provide incredible guidance, not only to Fairport, but to other Monroe County schools. And I'm hopeful that as we move along, we will continue to understand to what extent we can come together and be together under social distancing constraints, hopefully bringing families into the conversation so they can experience it up close and personal as well, in as much as they can under the guidelines that we're living in. Yeah, it might be a phased approach. It may or may not be everybody, but we need to be able to think strategically. So that's why, as we learn more, we will continue to shape the plan. And I know that people need to make plans. These are big moments in families' lives, and we're asking questions, communicating daily with our networks to make sure that we're not missing anything, but also feeding it through your graduation task force that I think is so important, because there's students, there's parent representatives, there's advisors, and there's administrators in there to take all these good questions, the thought exchange ideas, and continue to communicate what we're trying to accomplish.
absolutely, and the last thing I think we want to do is to communicate something and then have to change it. And so, again, I apologize for those frustrations, as I know that this is one of those big events that families plan for quite some time. We're going to do our very best. Once we communicate it, it's going to be a final plan, but there'll also be that contingent plan.
So are you thinking, and again, I'm just trying to respond to some of the questions, we talked
Sure.
about a July, early August, probably June, based upon what we're understanding is not likelihood.
Right, right.
Just again, because we want to maximize participation, we want to make it as meaningful and as thoughtful as we possibly can for families and for students.
Yeah, so based on what we know at this point right now, June is out. And so pushing into July and avoiding the 4th and understanding what our parameters are. Right now, our eyes are set on, if we push it back, if that extra month gives us that hope that social distancing guidelines are eased, and we can have an event that, again, we have to think in terms of just graduates and parents would be 1,500 people. In any venue that we have. So those are sort of the parameters you need to think about with that. And then, of course, all the staff that are required to kind of facilitate graduation. So that's the things that we want you to think about when you offer your ideas, and then just availability and what's feasible for us and what's not.
So, once again, we know these are such important times. We know what's on the line for our seniors and our families. You know, just going through a graduation myself, these are defining moments. Seeing your senior walk across the stage and being a part of that experience, we know that we need to be thoughtful and sensitive to make it come to fruition in as much as we can. We'll be working close with Monroe County Department of Health.
Right.
I know our students have thoughts and feelings about, you know, being with each other, and as they should.
Yeah.
And I know that you're going to be thoughtful.
You know, we talk about it from the first minute they enter into high school, as I said before. Our whole goal is to find ways for our class to come together. And this class is coming together in a much different way, you know, coalescing around a very big challenge our entire nation is going through. And so it's really not lost on us how I see the comments, you know, and they were in the thought exchanges too, you know, where our students are hurting. They wanted to graduate from high school. They want to do that together as a class. And I hope that you understand. We hear what you're saying. We acknowledge that. We know it's important to you. And if it was within our power to do that in a safe way, then we absolutely would do that. And so that's why we are delaying things as much as we can into the summer, looking at alternate options. But ultimately, we have to plan for the worst case scenario, if you will, which is some type of a virtual graduation. And again, that is not our hope. Our hope is to do something where we can come together. We are a family here, and we want to celebrate as a family, but we need to do that under the guidelines that we're given.
And I would say, just to give families and students a frame of reference, today's May 6th. I would say by May 22nd, we'll give you a progress update. We won't necessarily have answers, but you know, Mr. Clark will continue to gain information from his advisory group, take in feedback from what we're learning from our outside networks, and again, just share with you where we are in the process, and not necessarily say that we have an answer, but we will keep you posted, let you have a good pulse on what's happening.
Yeah, and I'll continue to send out the updates that I've been sending on Saturdays. I'm trying to, we're doing a lot of coordinating behind the scenes about when our messages go out, and so not trying to step on each other's messages. So, you know, as Mr. Provenzano puts out his weekly message, you know, I typically send mine out on Saturday evenings, and there'll be a section in there, messages for the class of 2020. I send that to both students and parents, and we'll continue to provide updates. And as I said, we will be sending out a formal invitation with a save the date once we've settled on our two plans, you know, to have the physical graduation or to have the virtual graduation, as soon as we nail down all those details and we've had that opportunity for our student voices to be heard and to help shape the plans so it's something, you know, memorable for them.
And I just want to give reassurance. I appreciate the great comments and feedback. We will check into the venues. We'll try to make it the best possible experience that we possibly can under the parameters that we're given. And again, that's why we're doing this Facebook Live session, to get more feedback, to continue to see how you know, we can make this the best possible experience.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So, Mr. Clark, some final closing thoughts?
You know, I certainly don't want to beat a dead horse here, and I know that we've gone over and over and say this again and again, but it really, from the bottom of my heart, as a father of three, I understand that this is a big deal to our students and our families, and we're really going to make every effort that we can to put together something that acknowledges all of your hard work and sacrifice. Your story here at Fairport High School is not ending the way that you would choose it. It's certainly not ending the way that we would choose it to end. But, you know, we love and care for you, and we want to, you know, do everything that we can to make this a memorable experience for you. So, you know, my apologies that it's under these circumstances. I'd much rather have a face-to-face conversation with students and parents, but we'll certainly do the best that we can here.
And I think that you will be talking about these other very important moments about yearbook pickup, cap and gowns, and other, you know, celebrations that we might be doing online, virtually, you know, decision day, et cetera.
Yeah, just one more quick thing as we sum up. Just a reminder again, like we've got the Unplugged experience. We're trying to replicate that virtually, something that is, you know, sort of a hallmark of brotherhood, sisterhood. We've got a Spirit Week coming up. We're trying to space some things out here to make sure that, we have a lot of, we still have about 8 weeks left here. And absolutely there'll be concrete communication around yearbook pickup and cap and gown pickup. And then at some point, we also need to close the year down for all students in the sense of getting back all of our library books and our textbooks and computers and that kind of stuff. So as I say, updates will be in our newsletter that comes out Saturday directly to students and their parents.
So I would like to close by saying these are the moments and these are the times that we're living in. And these are not the times or moments we would have chosen, but these are the times that we're confronted with. And I couldn't think of a better, more soulful, thoughtful, loving community than our Fairport community. We're a family. We will work through this together, and we'll get stronger through the adversity. And I truly believe that. And I know that these are moments that we haven't planned for, but I'm confident that we will continue to be together. We will lean on each other. We will make the best out of this experience. So at the end of the day, families can look at each other. They can be proud of the moment. Students can be grateful that they had a positive experience in their Fairport schools, and we're going to finish it in a way that only our caring, dynamic community can do. So,
absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. We really appreciate the efforts of your Fairport High School team. Again, on behalf of the Board of Education, we're looking forward to finishing strong and celebrating with our families, our students, and, of course, our Fairport family.
And
staff.
if I could just put in one last plug, it's Teacher Appreciation Week, and for all of you, that are facing that, on-screen burnout, finish the race strong, be proud of your experience at Fairport High School, stay engaged right to the end, so that you can be proud of yourselves. So, and then the last thing that I'm always mindful to say to you, take care of the people that are taking care of you. Be kind to your parents.
Thank you very much, and until
Thank you.
next time.
We're out, yeah.